this art project, we are pulling some inspiration from the Irish landscape painter Mary Swansea. Mary Swansea was born in Dublin, Ireland in 1882, and she's one of Ireland's first known abstract or modern painters. She painted in a number of different styles, but one of the styles she was known for is Cubism. Cubism is an art movement where artists do not try to depict realistic views of their subjects. Instead, the subject matter is broken up into different shapes and angles and almost looks like it's pieced back together. In these examples of her artworks, you can see some of those landscapes in the style of Cubism. So using this style of Cubism, let's pull some inspiration from Mary Swansea and create our own Cubist-inspired shamrock artwork. Hey everybody, I hope you're ready to create your own Cubist-inspired shamrock in honor of St. Patrick's Day. What you will need to get started is you will need a shamrock that is drawn on your paper. You can either print out the printout I have attached onto the Schoology page, or you can draw your own. And you will also need a ruler and a marker. I'm using a black permanent marker. Make sure it is a permanent marker. You can also use a Sharpie. It needs to be a permanent marker, not a Crayola marker or any other kind of marker. It needs to be a permanent marker so it does not end up smudging around later. If you do not have your own shamrock or you need to draw a shamrock, they're actually pretty simple. When you look at the shape of each leaf on the shamrock or on this clover, you will see that it kind of looks like a heart. So an easy way to draw a shamrock is to start with a heart at the top. So I'm creating the curve for the first heart, the curve on the other side, leaving that center space open. I like to rotate my paper, create my next heart over here. This curve is going to touch and connect where I left off. And I'm going to bring in my next curve, leaving some empty space. Rotate my paper again, and I'm gonna fill in my last petal here. So the last two curves for that heart, connecting it all together. And then add in the stem anywhere you have the open space between your clover's petals. It doesn't have to be perfect. There can be some spots that are a little smaller and some that are a little bigger. You're just looking to have a clover on your page. Again, if you don't want to draw your own and you have access to a printer, you can always print out one of my copies that I have on the Schoology page. Next, we're going to take our ruler and we're going to begin to draw on some lines on our shamrock. We're going to go all the way across the page. I'm going to start first with some vertical lines going up and down. So I'm going to add in 3 vertical lines to get started. 1, 2, 3. I'm going to take a look at this and see, do you think I might need to add in some more? I see a lot of space over here that's still open while this has lines drawn on it. So how about 4? Go slow, don't overdo it. I would say let's not do more than 4 lines, 4 vertical lines. Vertical meaning it goes from the top of the page to the bottom of the page, straight up and down. All right, my next thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna start with 3 horizontal lines. After I do these 3, I'm going to check to see if I need to add more. And remember, you're going all the way across the page. When you're using your ruler as your straight edge, don't forget to keep one hand as your anchor hand, the hand you do not draw with, while your other hand is gliding across with your Sharpie pen and going across your page. I also have a messy mat underneath my artwork so I can get Sharpie on the messy mat and not on my table. So here's my 3rd line. Let's do here. And let's take a look. Do you think we can squeeze in one more? I think so. Let's do 4. All right, so now we have 4 vertical lines, 4 horizontal lines going all the way across the page, and it's starting to divide my shamrock into different spots in my background. The last step is I'm going to look for some big spaces that I might want to come back in and just add in a few extra lines. Like maybe I want to add in one here. Maybe I want to divide up my shamrock's petals a little bit more. Might want to add in some of these diagonal lines. I like to touch to where I have a corner. And maybe one more right across the center here. All right, and take a look at our background. I see a big space right here, so I might want to split this one up a little bit. And maybe even add in an extra spot down here. Don't overdo this. All the extra lines I just added, I added 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I would say do no more than 6. You don't want to go crazy because the more you add, the more spots you're going to have. So our next step is we are going to be using some markers and doing marker bleeds to create this really cool, almost like faux stained glass look. Faux stained glass means it looks like stained glass, it's just fake because it's made with markers, but it's gonna look like light is shining through it. I'm going to only use the cool colors for this project. The cool colors are blue, green, and purple. And I have two of each color. I have two blues, one being a little more teal, one's regular blue, two green, a light and a dark, and two purples. One's just a little bit lighter than the other. Again, a light and a dark. And I'm going to use these to create that faux stained glass mosaic cubist inspired artwork on my shamrock. Where do you think we're gonna use the green? What you think? Would it make sense to use it on the background or in our shamrock? Yes, that's right. We're gonna use it inside of our shamrock because our shamrock is green. So then our remaining colors are going to be used on the background. In order to create a marker bleed, remember you are wanting to do outlining edges. So I'm gonna show you first right here inside my shamrock in this nice little triangle shape. I'm going to take my green marker. I'm going to color just right on the inside to create this empty space in the center. We want to leave that empty because that is where we're going to be filling it in with water. If you want to have two of the same colors touching side by side, that is not a problem. If you'd like to have some difference between your colors, try to alternate between using some of your light greens and your dark greens. If you only have one color of green, that's okay too. And just a little tip and trick when you're doing marker bleeds, these are not washable markers. If you see that it says anywhere on the marker washable and it has some little bubbles next to it, those aren't going to do so well with our marker bleed. You wanna have just regular Crayola markers, these work the best. So I'm gonna go ahead and do the same sort of outlining trick that I did here on the shamrock on all of my shamrock. Now I have all of the edges outlined on my shamrock. You can see some of these areas where those pieces were really tiny. If you have small areas on your shamrock, just go ahead and color in the entire piece with your marker. It's gonna be too small to do a marker bleed anyways. I also want you to notice how thick I did my lines. You do not want skinny little lines. There won't be enough color to bleed with that. So make sure you thicken up the lines a little bit. And paying close attention that you're only going inside of your shamrock. If you do the green outside of your shamrock, it's gonna start to confuse your background from your shamrock. So now that I have all of my shamrock done with my green colors, I'm gonna go ahead and do my background with my other cool colors, my two blues and my two purples. So I'm gonna go ahead, outline everything just like I did here using a thick line to create all of the different colors I want in the background with my remaining cool colors. All right, so now I have all of my spaces outlined. I have all of my background done with my purples and my blues, and then I have all the inside of the shamrock done with the greens. So we get to do the fun part now with the water, which is where we start to make those watercolors. You're starting to make the marker bleed and almost like you're making a watercolor. So all I have is just water my brush. I'm going to swirl on top of the color and you will see that it starts to fill in the inside with that lighter version of the color. So that's what's creating that faux stained glass looking like light is shining through. If you also want to have a really cool effect on your paper, take a little bit of salt, just a small pinch, drop a little bit of salt on top of your pieces, and you will see this really cool like crystal effect when it dries. Just a small pinch though, that's all it needs. So I'm going to go ahead and do all of my dark green spots inside of the shamrock first, and then add a little bit of salt to each piece. All right, now I'm gonna move on to doing the light green pieces, and same thing, just a little bit of some of that water to make that color bleed, and then I'm gonna add just a little bit of salt on top. If a little bit of your dark green starts to bleed over into your light green, or your light green into your dark green, that is okay. It's all green, so it won't mix and make an icky color. Check it out. You can already start to see as the watercolor is starting to dry or your marker bleed is starting to dry, it's creating that really cool look of fake stained glass. So now let's go ahead and jump into the background, finishing up our whole piece. Same thing, I'm gonna start with one of the colors and I'm gonna work my way through. So I'll start with like all of my dark blues, then I'll move into all of my purples, all of my teals, and don't forget to also add some salt to each piece as you work. So I'm gonna go ahead and do the entire background so you can see what our piece is going to look like when it's it's finished. Here it is, our mosaic cubist inspired faux stained glass shamrock. It is made with our cool colors. We used our greens on our shamrock, our blues and our purples in our background, and you can already see where the salt has started to dry, and it's left behind these really cool like crystallized looks in each of our spots, as well as these. I love the way it makes these little rings of color where the water is added to the marker. Make sure you let it completely dry before you start brushing off any of the salt. It does need to be absolutely dry to make sure it is finished doing its little reaction here in your watercolor on your marker bleed. So once you are done, everything is dry, then you can brush off the salt and you will have your completed artwork. I hope you guys enjoyed making this, and I hope you have a fantastic St. Patrick's Day.